this cryptocurrency bull run, I plan to create generational wealth to further solidify my financial legacy on not just my future children, but my future's children's children, and so on and so forth. That's what I'm working to this cryptocurrency bull run. So I'm making some very big plays this run, along with making some very, very smart decisions. And today in this video, I'm going to be revealing exactly what I'm doing in my flywheel to creating generational wealth so you can execute on this same strategy. Now, obviously, everybody's different. You might be in a situation where you already have kids and your kids already have kids and you're looking to leave them with some inheritance, or maybe you're in a situation where you don't have kids, you don't plan to have kids, and really you just want to be able to let your wife or your spouse live freely without having to worry about money after you're gone. There are a million different reasons why you might want to create your financial legacy. Maybe you just want to enjoy your life while you're still alive right now. That's what I'm trying to do as well. So what we're going to be talking about today is legacy and how we can create that through decentralized finance and what my personal flywheel actually is. So there's something known as LaaS, or liquidity as a service. Now, this concept has been around for a very, very long time. And essentially, liquidity as a service is when you take your capital basically and you provide it as a service. So actually, there's a lot of people doing this that don't even know that you're doing this. When you go and you park money in the banks and you get paid 0.5%, maybe 0.01%, depending on what bank you're at, they're taking your capital and they are lending it out. So you're putting it in the bank and the bank is going out here and distributing it and earning yield on your capital, probably about a 20% APR, because they're putting it in credit card financing and stuff like that. They're financing other ventures and they're earning a lot of money off of it and paying you pennies on the dollar for what they are earning, right? That's exactly what the banks are doing. And granted, it's FDIC insured, it's backed by the government and whatnot. But with that being said, what I want to talk about is LaaS in DeFi and cryptocurrency. You can take your cryptocurrency assets, so we'll just keep that as a C for cryptocurrency. You can park them in liquidity pools, which is essentially a pool where traders are able to execute trades. So people come in, a trader, they will put one asset in the liquidity pool and then they will take the other asset out of the liquidity pool, right? So if this liquidity pool is ETH plus USDC, well then they're able to trade between ETH and USDC in this liquidity pool. Obviously, the user experience is a lot easier. They could just go to a decentralized exchange, say I want to swap this asset for this asset, and boom, execute the trade. But all of this will go through the liquidity pool basically. And by us providing capital to the liquidity pool, when this trader pays that very small fee of 0.3%, that 0.3% fee on the overall trade value is going to go to us as liquidity providers. And the cool thing is, centralized exchanges, they charge 2 to 3%. So there's a huge benefit for the traders to go out and trade through liquidity pools, because these are charging on average about 0.3%. Additionally, through liquidity pools, traders don't have to go and send money from their cold wallet to their hot wallet and then execute a trade and then go and send it back from their hot wallet to their cold wallet, but rather they can just go directly from their cold wallet to the liquidity pool, which will ultimately put the other asset back in their wallet. It's a pretty simple concept, right? We are putting capital in liquidity pool, and that capital is in two different tokens. If it's ETH and USDC, we have to put both ETH and USDC in that liquidity pool in order to allow trades to be able to execute. Traders can come in, trade one asset for the other asset. If they put Ethereum in the liquidity pool, take USDC out of the liquidity pool, we now have more Ethereum in our position and less USDC in our position. I'm not going to dive into the huge intricacies of that, but if you guys want to see this in action and you guys want to see me find different liquidity pools, drop a like and subscribe when notifications turned on. We're currently one of the largest DeFi channels in this space, and we plan to keep it that way by offering not only transparent knowledge, but also just not bullshitting you on YouTube like most people end up doing. Now, liquidity as a service is a pretty interesting concept, because remember, we're just taking our capital, we're putting it in a liquidity pool. We still have self-custody of it because we're the only one that has the rights to the position in that liquidity pool. But with that being said, we can get APRs on blue chip assets of anywhere between 50 and 80%. And when I'm talking about blue chip assets, I'm talking about Bitcoin, I'm talking about Ethereum, and I'm talking about Sol. That's what I define as a blue chip asset. Occasionally we could throw in BNB in there as well, but that's mainly if you're from an Asian country, because that's where the main use case behind BNB chain actually is. Now, it gets even better because as we start to ramp it up, we can get 80 to 100% APR on more altcoin like assets, but still blue chip altcoins, stuff like Link, stuff like Render. All these assets we can get about 80 to 100% APR on, depending on kind of what the market's doing and how much volume is flowing through the markets. And then we can get 100% plus on assets that are risky, right? And new, but maybe have strong fundamentals. So some of those could be ATH token, could be GRT token, could be, let's just say, Pyth token. All these are a couple examples of altcoins that are lower market cap but have a ton of growth potential, but you can get a pretty high APR on it basically by just deploying in liquidity as a service, because you're allowing people to actually trade these assets in the primary markets, and in return you're getting paid for it. So obviously, now that we know what liquidity as a service is, we know the return potential, I want to talk about my personal strategy, right? Because I have two different things. Number one, I have my crypto bag where I hodl crypto, and then number two, I have my DeFi bag where I invest in liquidity pools. Now, why wouldn't I just go and throw all my crypto into my DeFi bag? The reason why I would not do that is simply because, as I told you earlier, you put two assets in a liquidity pool. If somebody buys one, they're giving you the other basically. So that's called divergence loss. Now, I personally have strategies for mitigating that divergence loss, but you cannot cut it out. You can't get rid of it unless you're providing liquidity for something like Ethereum, wrap sticked Ethereum. But then these returns, these things are out the window. You're now getting roughly 10% maybe or so on a good day. It's not that good. I want to get about 50 to 80% or 80 to 100% or 100% plus, right? That's where DeFi comes into play. Now, I personally have about half and half in my crypto bag as well as my DeFi portfolio. In my crypto bag, I hold assets like Ethereum, I hold assets like Bitcoin, and I also hold high growth assets. So let's just say altcoins. But these two assets right here are about 60% of my hodl bag basically. And then in my DeFi bag, I have a split of roughly, let's just say about 50% blue chip, and then I have about 30% in altcoins, and then I have the other 20% in the high risk assets basically that could go to zero, right? But are also paying pretty high returns. Now, my personal portfolio, I target about a 75% APR. I'm not a crazy guy that targets 150, 200%. The reason why is because I'm looking to establish my financial legacy, but I'm also not looking to give up literally every single hour of my time. I want to build a business, which is what I'm doing in the DeFi space. I want to spend time with my girlfriend. I want to spend time with my family. I want to pet my cats. I want to have time outside of DeFi, which is why I target 75%. So I can spend maybe 2 to 3 hours out of my entire week just building out my portfolio and scaling up that portfolio and managing it basically. So by minimizing the amount of time I spend, I also get a little bit lower of a return. I could get more than this if I wanted to, but I have to spend more time, which is why I don't target a higher return. Now, I do on track with my targets about 75% APR per year. That's what I've done for the past 3 to 4 years that I've been in the decentralized finance space. And that's what I did when I worked with different institutions in the decentralized finance space. Now, of this 75%, I live on absolutely none of it. But if you need to live on it in order to pay your bills, or maybe you're just in a rough spot where you're living paycheck to paycheck, you need to have some additional capital to be able to set aside for savings and stuff like that, emergency fund, whatever it is, it's completely fine. Go allocate some of that to actual living expenses. Me personally, I'm in a pretty good situation with how my businesses are performing, so I'm able to live off of my business income, or a sliver of what my business makes basically. And I live very, very frugal, so that way I'm not blowing a bunch of money on random stuff that I don't actually need, and really just focusing on building my financial future and my financial legacy so I can set up my kids' kids. So of this 75%, about half of that 75% that I actually make, so let's just say about 37.5% per year, that's going right over here to my hodl bag, the assets that I'm just strictly hodling in my cryptocurrency wallet. Now, I'm not just going and saying, okay, I got $1,000 in earnings, 500 goes here, 500 goes here. Sometimes I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to put it all in the hodl bag when we see good dips. Other times I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to put it all back into the DeFi portfolio, right? The other 50% over here will just go straight back to my DeFi portfolio. Now, this is a strategy of compounding that I personally truly believe in, right? Because there are going to be times where you have a lot of divergence loss, or you're expecting a lot of divergence loss. So you go and you put everything into just hodling cryptocurrency assets, because now that hodl bag won't have exposure to divergence loss. Whereas there's other times where you're expecting low divergence loss and the market's just moving sideways, and it makes more sense to compound right back into the DeFi portfolio. That's what I'm personally doing. Now, this is a very, very high level overview of my personal strategy. I have a whole flywheel on how this thing actually works. And if you guys do want me to break that down, once again, drop a like and subscribe, notifications turned on, but let me know down below in the comment section. Now, I've talked a lot about building a financial legacy, creating generational wealth, setting up my kids. And if you guys are more interested in learning how you can utilize decentralized finance to actually do that, I'm going to leave linked down below a quick 15-minute presentation that I made for my DeFi Legacy program, where we will literally walk you through, handhold you on how to create your own financial legacy through decentralized finance. We have a 5-phase roadmap that you can complete in just 5 weeks to build and scale a robust DeFi passive income portfolio. We've worked with over 150 people in actually doing this, and we've used this proven and tried system for the past 3 years to actually create success in the decentralized finance industry honestly, a lot of the other people that you see online talking about DeFi have only been in this industry for about half a year or a year. Anyways, the link to my DeFi Legacy presentation is going to be right down below this video, and if you like what you see in that presentation, hit this apply now to see if you qualify button, because we do only work with 15 individuals per month in order to keep our program exclusive, so that way we can truly allocate a good amount of time to your financial legacy. But as you can see, we've already gone through a bit of information on this whiteboard. I want to start to dive deeper into things and talk about potential returns and how this could actually shape your financial future. For starters, I'm going to assume that I have $100,000 invested into decentralized finance. And of that, once again, we allocate 50% over to the HODL. So that's going to be $50,000. And then the other 50% goes to the DeFi portfolio, basically. Now remember, on our HODL portfolio, we're practically getting no APR, or if we're staking, maybe we're getting an additional 2% overall. That's what we'll assume. And then on the DeFi portfolio, that's where we're playing big numbers, and we're getting that 75% per year roughly, at least in my personal portfolio. You can get upwards near 150% per year sustainably, but you have to monitor it a lot often, and you have to make quicker decisions, which can lead to bigger mistakes. Anyways, off of our HODL portfolio, over the course of a year, we'll make about $1,000. Over the course of a year on our DeFi portfolio, we'll make $37,500. And it's assuming that there's absolutely no appreciation during the time that we are deployed into these liquidity pools, as well as our HODL portfolio. If the prices start to go up and our 50 is now 60, 70, 80K, right? We're still earning 75% APR. This number right here goes up. But for simplicity purposes, we're not going to assume that. So now after 1 year's times, let's just assume that we have $51,000 in our HODL portfolio. And the reason why is because this $1,000 has just automatically been compounded back into it. And then we have nearly $20,000 that's deployed right back into the HODL portfolio because we grabbed some of this $37,500 in APR that we generated from our DeFi portfolio. Now we have $70,000 in our HODL portfolio, basically. Now our DeFi portfolio is going to have a similar amount of capital, just minus that $1,000, and this is assuming that we haven't seen any growth quite yet. But what happens when we see roughly a 2x over the course of a year, which is very, very reasonable for stuff like Bitcoin, Ethereum, especially reasonable when you're including Sol and other cryptocurrency assets that have a lower market cap in your portfolio, like I personally do. So we multiply that by 2. We now have $140,000. Our DeFi portfolio, we multiply by 1.8, and the reason why is because we have divergence loss when we are in DeFi. And that divergence loss is when somebody comes in, swaps one asset for another asset, and we have to take on exposure to the one asset that they just gave us, basically. We still have 140K in our HODLs and 123K, nearly 124K in our DeFi portfolio. Now, what happens when this 140K generates a 2% APR and this 123K generates a 75% APR? We now have $92,000 generated from our DeFi portfolio, $3,000 from our HODL portfolio. So what do? Well, we take that $3,000, we compound it back into the portfolio, so we have $142,000, and then we take half of what came from our DeFi portfolio, and we have $188,000 in our HODL portfolio. Now we also have our DeFi portfolio. Keep in mind, we take that and we compound half of it back into the DeFi portfolio. We now have 170K in DeFi. And assuming we see a 2x on that, we have our APR that's being generated. That's roughly 7,500 just from like staking and stuff along those lines. And our DeFi portfolio generates $230,000 a year. This is the process of building and scaling a portfolio. This is the process of creating a financial legacy. And while these numbers are not guaranteed, I'm just showing examples, because keep in mind, if we didn't have any income right over here, basically, we are going to end up with a total of basically $362,000. And that right there would be a 3.6x just from the market moving up in price, which is very, very reasonable. I want you to put it in perspective. Do you think that Bitcoin is going to go to $150,000? Do you think Ethereum is going to go to $7,500? Do you think Sol is going to go to $300? Do you think Render is going to go back to its all-time high or above it at nearly $15, $16? If you do, then you know that a 3.6x is very much possible at this stage in the bull market. All we're doing here is adding on that income that we're generating, and by adding on that income that we're generating, we are going from having just $362,000 by holding in the market to having $684,000, because we're taking all of the income that we're earning and compounding it back into HODLs and DeFi portfolio. This is the flywheel right here, and this is how you create generational wealth and truly establish your financial legacy. And if you guys are interested in doing that and working with myself, somebody that has done this for the past 4 years of their life and has literally dedicated their life to this over the past 4 years, then I recommend you take a look at my DeFi Legacy program right down below in the description. It's the best place to be for support in the decentralized finance industry. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, drop a like, subscribe, notifications turned on, and as always, we will see you guys in the next video where we will be showing this in action and showing you different liquidity pool examples.